This time we're going to take a look at the working bibliography assignment, which is a part of the project that ends with the research-based response paper. It's sort of capstone assignment for our course. April 28th is the last date the assignment will be accepted this semester, but you are encouraged to turn it in as soon as possible. Just email me and let me know that you've submitted it. That way I can take a look at it and point out any gaps in your research or perhaps sources that you've overlooked. I just want to make sure that everyone's getting started and locating the kinds of literary sources that you'll need to write your paper. The working bibliography, by definition, then, is a working document in two ways. First of all, it'll change through the research process. It expands each time you find a potentially useful source. It contracts each time you omit a source that turns out to be less relevant than you anticipated. So when you turn it into me, it really is a snapshot of where you are at that particular point in time. You are certainly free to add other sources after you've turned it in. You can, and then especially if there are sources that turn out to be more useful than what you found, use them in your paper. But be sure that your working bibliography evolves one more time. That is to become the works cited page for the final draft. At this point, you have to eliminate all the sources you do not use in your paper. Add any sources that you do end up using in your paper to your works cited page that aren't on the working bibliography. Each semester, some student loses a significant number of points because the student turns in the working bibliography as the works cited page. And so if you include sources that are not cited in your paper, that's going to have a serious impact on your final grade for the research paper. So again, be sure that your works cited page reflects only the sources you used in your paper, that you can locate each of the sources on your works cited page in the paper. The working bibliography is in order for me to kind of monitor your initial foray into the research. All right. So as soon as you begin focusing on an interpretive question, I want you to start compiling the working bibliography of scholarly sources that discuss the literary works you've chosen. Consult all the resources available to you. The ProQuest Central Literature Resource Center databases are the most important, but look for ebooks available through the library's website. Your assignment for the working bibliography is to include at least 12 suitable sources and compile an alphabetized list of each that uses MLA-style citations, the 8th edition. Be sure that you examine each source to confirm that it's clearly related to the works you're researching. Do not include newspaper, magazine articles, things like that. Include only sources that are available in full text and are PDFs. You're looking for scholarly articles and books of criticism that discuss the selected primary text in detail. So alphabetize the list of sources by author's last name. If you have sources that do not have authors, then you may want to ask yourself, is this something I want to include on the works cited page? Use the hanging indents, quotation marks, and italics correctly for titles. Be sure everything's double-spaced, 12-point, Times New Roman, Garamond if you want to switch it up is another font you can use, but only those two. Before the first source, include your research question using this format. So a research question: how do depictions of warrior elites in medieval literary works differ from characters in works from the early modern period? So here I might have articles about Beowulf or some of the Arthurian romances to discuss the first part of this, then focus on some of the more clownish knight characters we saw in Twelfth Night in the second part. So articles about Sir Toby or Sir Andrew. The working bibliography is a source of secondary sources only, so do not include citations for the primary works that are the subject of your research paper. So if you're using Twelfth Night or Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, don't include those on your working bibliography. If that's what you're writing about in your final paper, yes, include them on your works cited page, but not on the working bibliography. All right, beyond that, I've included examples of just about everything you'll include. Here's a journal article from a database, a couple of them. Here's a journal article with the DOI, that number, that the digital object identifier. Here's an example of ebooks, from a database, an ebook with a permalink, a print book. There are a number of books at the James Library that you would also find relevant for this. They can go in your working bibliography and show up in your final paper. And at the end, here's the rubric I'll use to assess the final paper, the final submission. Okay, so that's the working bibliography assignment. Again, due April 28th is the drop dead date. But if you submitted earlier, let me know. I'll be happy to take a look at it.